Are you thinking of going into private practice and you want to take the leap, but you're nervous and you're scared and you're stuck? Then this video is for you. If you're new to my channel, my name is Tracy. Welcome. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist in private practice in the state of Massachusetts, and this video is about how to unstick yourself. So, a little bit about my history. My work history. I left community mental health after I got licensed. I worked there for a couple of years and I joined a group practice working on an animal farm, of all things, doing psychotherapy with children and adolescents. And that was quite an experience. We worked with all kinds of animals, llamas, pigs, goats, one stubborn donkey, horses, and a lot of nature activities and things of that nature. So I worked there for a year. It was a good experience, but I realized working with kids is not exactly my jam, not something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so I started to think about, what am I going to do for the future? I had some thoughts of wanting to join a group practice, but at that time when I was working at the farm, I wasn't licensed yet. You have to earn so many clinical hours and sit for the exam before your licensure. And I saw an ad in the paper. Well, it wasn't the paper, it was online. I think it was Indeed.com, where a group practice manager posted an ad. And what drew me in was, at that time, which was about, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, was that you could pull in about $75,000 a year. And of course, I was like, oh, that sounded magical. So I reached out to him and we set up a phone consult. We spoke for about 25-30 minutes. It went really well. But at the end of the call, he said, hey, listen, when you get licensed, reach back out to me and we can go from there. So I don't know how long it took. Maybe it was another 6 months or so. I'd say 4 to 6 months. I got my license, which the exam was hard, by the way, but isn't it always? I reached back out to him and I started to work for him. And I stayed there for 8 years. It was a great run. So if anybody's looking to join a group private practice and you're in the state of Massachusetts, shout out to the Psych Ed group. I would highly recommend them. I really had no issues working there. But then what happened is, you start to realize, like, wow, you can make even more money and you could have more autonomy to run your own business. So the seed was planted. And I started to take those steps, but I was dragging my feet because it's scary and it's the unknowns and there's no solid predictability for success. So those feelings definitely had me dragging my feet. But time was going by and I still felt like I really wanted to advance my career. So what I started to do was network. And this is a skill and a technique I highly recommend if you're thinking into going into business for yourself. Network with other people. So what I did was I put some feelers out there for folks who were in private practice, and I asked them if they were willing to show me the ropes. Like, what are those steps to take? Because it is daunting and it can be overwhelming. So having some guidance along the way, I would highly recommend it. And I was fortunate because when I started that process, I found that other therapists were really eager to help and they wanted to see me succeed. So that was awesome. And I did some other things, like I started wondering, like, where am I going to work? Right? If I was going to rent an office, just planting those seeds to see what's out there. And so obviously when driving around and doing researching for therapists in my area, you could see their location. Or sometimes I would go on Psychology Today, which is I think it's a national database for licensed clinicians. So if you're looking for a therapist, that is like a really good spot to check out. Just type in your zip code and you'll get hundreds. if not thousands of therapists. And again, I started to find some of those therapists in my area. And then I would look to see on their Psychology Today profile the town where they worked, or sometimes they would list the actual physical location. So I learned more about what other office buildings provide office space. So I started to build some options there. So let's see. So I worked for the group practice for 8 years. And then when I started to get closer to, so what my plan was to continue working for the group practice, as many clinical hours as required to fulfill their contract, but also open my own practice so that I can work in the evenings or like on Saturday mornings, and slowly start to build that caseload and get all my ducks in a row to really fully open the practice, and then leave the group practice and find a location and just solely work for myself. But what happened there was, when I started to start the process for credentialing so I can get on insurance panels, there's a database called CAQH, which is an acronym, CAQH, which stands for, oh my goodness gracious, the Council for Affordable and Quality Health. I think that's what it stands for. But what it is it's a database where when you get credentialed with insurance companies, you upload and you keep it active and up to date, all of your professional information, your resume, licensure information, liability insurance, location where you work, all of that stuff. It's in one database. And then over time, the insurance companies, when they need to keep your credentialing active, they will check in with your CAQH and just make sure all your ducks are in a row. But what happened was, when I went, so when I worked for the group practice, he got me on all of the insurance panels, and he created, which most group practices will start your CAQH profile, because they're the ones that operate it, because you work for them, sort of, even though you're a 1099. And he has your username and login. So that was a little barrier. And I forget exactly how, I think I called CAQH and I explained the situation, and like, oh, you just have to reset your password. And I think they gave me my ID name or something like that. So anyway, okay, so I go in there and I update my password, and wouldn't you know, it was by the end of the day, I got an email from the group practice owner, and he's like, hey, have you logged into your CAQH? I got a notification that some info was changed or whatever, and I was not expecting that, at least not so soon. I figured it would take him maybe a couple of months to figure that out, because you only have to update your CAQH. I think it's every 90 days, maybe 120. I do it every 3 months. So that changed my plan in terms of when I was going to tell him that I was planning on leaving the group practice. So I tell him, oh, this is my plan. And he's like, oh, you're leaving the practice? He's like, well, what would it take for you to stay, basically? And I was, of course, was like, well, it's money. Let's talk money. So we did. And he offered to give me more money. And I agreed to stay for 3 more years. And the reason that I agreed to that, you might think, why did I just take the full leap and leave what I was planning on leaving? Well, here was my reasoning. So I'm self-employed. Even when I was working for the group practice, I'm self-employed. So if I don't work, I don't get an income. So any days that I take off, I lose income. And if I felt like if I stayed at that group practice, and he knew I would be leaving at the end of those 3 years, at least I thought he would. He said he was so surprised when I left in the end, but whatever. I was anxious about how am I going to sustain my income in that gap, right? Because I didn't assume that all of my clients were going to leave and follow me to a new location in a new town. So I had to prepare to build up my income and my caseload. So I agreed to stay working for him while I was able to build my private practice on the side, doing telehealth. So I worked from home in my home office, doing telehealth, and I worked for him. I was supposed to see like 21 clients a week. And at the end of those 3 years, I felt like I was ready to leave. Now, along the way, there's still anxiety, and there's still, it's like the pressure's all on you, right? It's up to you to either succeed and make it happen. So some of my tips along the way are jot all of your ideas down, your checklists of things to do, phone calls that you make, things, tasks that you still got to do, jot it all down in a notebook. That is literally what got me to where I am because you can't keep it all in your head. You'll go crazy, So keeping a journal, network, find people who are in your field doing the very job that you want to do, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The worst that they'll do is maybe not respond, but I didn't have that experience. I had a really awesome experience with that. And sure, those negative thoughts can creep in, like, well, what if I don't succeed? What if I fail? Am I good enough? And if you're one of those people that thinks, oh, you never succeed at anything, you're just not good enough, I would say to you, you've never succeeded in anything. You've never learned to ride a bike or to swim, or you didn't graduate high school. Like, there's nothing, you didn't get your driver's license. All of those things are challenges, sure, and they were difficult, sure, and even painful. But the key is you don't give up. If you give up, that's the failure. If you try and it's not working, try something different. Get those answers that you need to be successful in your goal, because you can do it. And so I eventually left the group practice and I opened up the practice. I am in Massachusetts, and it is one of the best decisions that I ever did. Now, I'm not saying private practice doesn't have its negative aspects to it. Like, for one, I'm income based. So if I don't work, I don't do the sessions, or I'm sick, or I go on vacation and I take time off, I'm not generating any income during that time. And I also don't have any benefits. And that's one thing that is always looming in the back of my mind. So if I get sick, for example, or I get into a car accident and I'm not able to work for a period of time, and I'm in my 50s now, I just turned 50. I know, can you believe it? But I turned 50 and I do worry about health issues. I don't have family medical leave that I can take. So it is a gamble. If you are married and you have a partner who does have benefits, or they have a lot of income that they really are pulling in, then that's helpful for you, of course, right? I'm not married. I am with a partner, but he's also self-employed. So we're kind of in the same boat as far as that goes. But my plan is to generate for my income to continually go higher and expand in other ways of passive income in my free time, so that I can, stay afloat. And so looking back, my biggest recommendation, if you're really thinking about it, is, what is your template? Start with jotting your plan down. What are the steps that are missing? Who can you go to get that information answered? Because somebody knows. There's always people that you can find. And overall, even with the negatives, I highly recommend going into private practice because of the freedom, the autonomy. You set your own rules, assuming that you follow ethics. You got to follow the ethics. But there is a lot of leeway to really just be yourself and get trained in all the things that you want to get trained in. Take the clients and pick the clients that you want to work with, and set your fees and all of that stuff if you're private pay. So I hope that this video was helpful. And remember, you can do it. You've got to start to believe in yourself. Have a great day.